The Night Floaters. Some random news reports. 1. Special to the Sun. Oakville College students reported the discovery of a headless body September 29th while visiting the old cemeteries in Lyons Valley Park after dark. The body, said to be that of a 6-foot naked male in his early 30s, was discovered at the edge of the woods on the west side of the 16-mile creek. Dave T., 19, of Oakville, said he and 3 friends were walking along a dirt path leading to the Proudfoot Hollow graveyard when they came across the man. One of the girls almost tripped over him. Once we got over the shock, seeing the guy was butt naked, we figured he was dead, maybe from a gangland killing. We decided we'd better nook it out of there and call the cops. While on the way back to their car, in the lot beneath the Dundas Street Bridge, the young people saw strange lights among the trees and heard an ominous, moaning sound. It was kind of like, and it would get louder, then it would get faint, said Florence, 18, of Hamilton. It was totally creepy. I was so scared I took off my shoes and ran back to the car. Once back in the car and heading out of the park, the students' ordeal continued. I was looking out the passenger side window, Jason B., 20, also of Oakville, said, when I caught a glimpse of a white thing outside the window. I looked again, and holy shit, I realized it was a man's head. Maybe the head of the guy in the park, hanging in midair. No shit, it was flying after us. The students, who attend Sheridan College, called 911 while fleeing the park. Police responded, but were unable to locate the headless body and found nothing unusual at the scene. They were really scared, said Constable Millard of the Oakville Police Service. We took them seriously. Strange lights and sounds have frequently been reported in Lyons Valley Park, site of a trio of historic cemeteries, while mysterious headless bodies have been reported in a number of Halton communities. 2. Huron County. An Exeter resident said she was pursued by a floating head while driving on Provincial 83 and says she felt she was being stalked by a paranormal entity. The driver, who asked to remain anonymous, said she was returning from work in nearby Stratford when she realized she was being followed. It was misty, so I turned my brights on, she told the Times-Herald. It was in the middle of the road, right in front of me, hanging about 6 feet above the road. I hit the brakes to avoid it hitting the windshield, and it just disappeared. I'd slowed down, and when I passed the spot where I'd seen it, it came out of the mist and began following me. The witness said all she could see was a human head, without a body or other appendages. It had a thin white face with long hair streaming behind it as it followed the vehicle. Its eyes appeared to be red, like an animal's. She accelerated, only to find to her horror that the flying head was keeping pace with her vehicle. I could see it in my rearview mirror, and, this is gross, the damn thing was smiling at me. It kept on my ass all the way to town. I drove straight home and hurried inside, I can tell you, and turned on every light in the house. The woman claims to have spoken with a number of Exeter residents, who also claim to have encountered the mysterious heads on area roads after dark. It's way more common than you think, the witness said. People won't talk about it because they don't think anyone will believe them, which is why I'm coming forward. But the story isn't over. I was in Tim Hortons in Stratford when I noticed this guy staring at me and realized it was the same ugly guy whose head had chased me. I realized he must be what they call a floater, and he must live around here. Is he stalking me? Exeter, OPP, were unavailable for comment. Floaters are malignant beings said to be able to detach their heads from their bodies so as to fly through the night and attack their victims by terrorizing or biting them. Many consider floaters to be an urban legend. A similar incident along the 83 was reported by the Kitchener Record last August. 3. Mississauga. A Mississauga woman says a pair of floating heads entered her bedroom and assaulted her. The report, received by an anonymous tip to the news, indicates that the event allegedly occurred inside an apartment in a Port Credit high-rise. All night I had been feeling weird, like I wasn't alone in the apartment, the anonymous woman said. I thought I was being paranoid, but after I went to bed, I noticed a white object entering my bedroom. The witness claimed that she tried to call for help, but was unable to make a sound. I couldn't move, she explained. It was like I was watching it happen to someone else. It was then she saw two human heads floating above her as she lay in bed. One was a male with a thin, pockmarked face and wild hair, the other a girl with straggly hair. The two heads hovered above her, staring down at her before the male of the pair suddenly swooped down at her and began speaking, into my right ear, in a greasy voice. I don't want to repeat what he said to me, only it was gross, disgusting, she recalled. I then felt a sharp pain in the side of my neck, and that's all I can remember. I woke up with a stiff neck, but I thought I must have slept the wrong way. I figured the whole thing was just a bad nightmare. But 2 days later, I noticed this red swelling on the right side of my throat, she said. It was like a huge hickey. Ugh. I feel totally violated. The woman's story recalls numerous reports since 2002 of attacks by floating heads, or bobs, in the Golden Horseshoe. Bobs can detach their heads from their bodies so they may fly through the night and attack their victims by terrorizing or biting them. The woman is thinking of starting a Twitter campaign for other victims under the hashtag @FloatersMeToo. 4. Canada. Hiro Watanabe, 46, a Japanese tourist, told the Winnipeg Sun of a mysterious encounter along the Trans-Canada Highway around midnight on April 30th. I was driving through northern Ontario and decided to drive at night to try to avoid the big trucks, he said. I pulled into a rest area to take a break. There were some trees behind it. I sat at a picnic table, drinking warm tea from a thermos bottle and looking into the trees. Watanabe then noticed something white flitting through the trees, about 100 yards away. I was curious, so I watched. I stared at it and suddenly realized that what I was watching was a human head. It was darting back and forth like a bat. It turned around and around, and then I suddenly realized it was catching and eating flying bugs. And then it stopped dead, just hovering in the air and looking in my direction. The witness described the disembodied head as that of a thin female with a dirty face and long flowing dark hair. She, had red eyes which glowed in the dark. She hovered there, staring at me, and for a moment I was afraid she was going to come towards me, maybe even attack. I hunched over, ready to run for it, but then she turned and shot into the trees. I could not believe how quickly. Watanabe believed that what he observed was a nukakubi, a Japanese folklore creature appearing in the works of Lafcadio Hearn. Watanabe had to use the facilities before getting back on the road. I was sitting on the commode relieving myself when I heard something and, looking up, saw the thin face of the girl peering over the top of the stall and leering down at me. When she saw I had noticed her, she began shrieking with laughter. It was very humiliating. Watanabe said the head continued to pursue him after he left the rest area. I could see her in my rearview mirror, mouth open like a big slash. Maybe she was still laughing at me. She only went away when a big transport truck got behind me and flooded everything with its headlights. For once, I was happy to have a big truck behind me. A series of floating head encounters have reportedly taken place along the stretch of Highway 1 between the Sioux and the Lakehead during the past few months. In late August, a high school teacher visiting the Terry Fox Monument said he had been harassed by a floating human head while walking around the site, and a busload of Japanese tourists visiting the monument at dusk claimed a group of nukakubi could be seen at dusk flitting through the surrounding trees, but that they were unable to take pictures of them. 5. Canada. A 43-year-old man says he was attacked by a flock of floating heads in northern Ontario while hunting moose north of Rat Portage on April 30th, Walpurgis night. I was walking through a marsh, stalking a moose. I had not been drinking, or maybe just a little. Rye to keep me warm, eh? It was full dark when I saw a bunch of these pale things flitting through the trees and coming out, hovering above the water. Suddenly, I realized it was a flock of decapitated human heads, and I'll be damned, but I'd swear they was eating bugs. It was sickening to watch. It was then the flock of heads noticed him and attacked, swooping down at him and gnashing their teeth as if to bite him. I tried to get into the trees for shelter and used my shotgun like a club. I hit one of them too, but there were too many of them, and I would have been a goner, but suddenly the whole area was filled with flashing light, like a strobe light, eh? And the heads all disappeared. I got the hell out of there, I can tell you. Funny thing, though, when I got back to my truck, it was 3 hours later than I thought it should be. Where did the missing time go? Sightings of detached, levitating heads, sometimes referred to as floaters, have been reported from a number of Canadian and American settings, with additional Asian and European reports. References in some accounts to strobe lighting and missing time suggest they might be connected to extraterrestrial beings exploring planet Earth, or the result of black ops or military experiments run amok. 30. The end.